I suppose I'll get started until we get the whole committee going and figure out roles and all that stuff. So it's 6 o'clock, the Tilton Northfield Fire Station Building Committee organizational meeting. Present is Matt Ozier, Kevin Cate, Julia Chase, John Silly, Derek Farrell, Tim Sackler, and Kevin Waldron. Absent but currently on the committee is Joyce Fulweiler, Claude Odell, Chief Sitar, and Bill Watson. And there's still a current vacancy from the Northfield resident open for someone to submit their application to the commissioners. So,
is that being solicited?
we addressed it last night at the meeting, so it's on the minutes from that. Chief was going to put it on the page today, on the home page or Facebook page, and I'm going to try sharing it to a few of the other pages as well. So we put it out. So if you know of anyone from Northfield that's interested,
I live in Northfield.
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The reason that John mentioned that is because the bylaws say that the community has to have equal representation.
Yep.
Sure, makes sense.
In both towns.
And so that's what we're going to have. Matt is the call company representative. He's on the call company. Kevin is resident of Tilton. Julie is resident of Northfield.
Oh, okay.
Myself, I'm the commissioner representative. Derek is the full-time duty crew representative. Joyce Fulweiler is Northfield resident. Todd Odell is a Tilton resident. Tim Sackler is a Tilton resident. Chief Sitar is the administration representative. Bill Watson is a Tilton representative, and Kevin Waldron is a Northfield representative. So as long as we get that one vacancy for Northfield, it would still be an equal thing. And we discussed it last night, and now it's on the minutes again tonight, and we'll move it around Facebook and the page posting it. And we'll fill it as soon as we can. So that's the attendance part. So the first thing we need to do is assign a chair to the committee. I'm just starting it up right now, unless we go that way.
Can we back up a little bit?
Sure.
Some of the members are non-voting members.
The chief, correct.
Chief, of the two firefighters who were
They were last time.
voting or non-voting?
They were voting members.
Okay.
Yep. The chief was the only one on the station planning or the site, whatever, the fire station committee. I actually have the reports here for everyone. The chief was the only one that was a non-voting member. Yep. So, yeah, you can pass these around. These are the outcomes of the last committee, trying to find a location feasible and possibilities of that. So I want to make sure everyone had at least a copy of that they can take home with them to kind of see what led to this. Not last year, the year before COVID-19, we actually had the committee trying to find a feasible location of one station or two stations, Tilton side or Northfield side. Where could we put it? That's where the Park Street property kind of fell into an opportunity of expansion with that state turned over land. So this is what the committee came out as one of the better options. I mean, ideally, the coverage would be nice to have two, but then you talk about two stations, revenue, more duty crew, so a lot of pros and cons to that. So the most feasible was one station headquartered here at Park Street.
We are 23 Drive, collecting property.
I'm trying to just flying through this, so please stop me and slow me back and all that stuff. All right. So this is a appointed committee. There will have to be a chair for the appointed committee to generate the agenda, kind of drive it through. What are people's thoughts to it?
Move to, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
I was just going to ask, do we have a charge from the commissioners?
Yep. All right. So another thing I can pass around right now is this is the members of the committee, and at the bottom of it, the charge is a very vague charge from the commissioners, kind of left for the committee to develop it and morph it if they need to, but ideally, plan to create a shovel-ready plan ready to be funded and bring to the 2022 annual district meeting for approval. that's pretty much what came out of our meeting last in September, working on getting the charge. There was a lot of discussion on that, back and forth of how to do it, but the ideal plan is to come up with plans and everything to submit to the public and try and keep the process moving forward.
579, 025 for the lights.
And Kevin were both at that meeting, so if you have 2 cents or stuff I didn't see of it, please chime up.
Are we back to
Thank you.
organization?
I think so.
Okay. Nominate John Sullivan.
579, close by.
Second.
See, right. Any other people want to also nominate or be nominated or railroaded or however you like? Okay. Make it official then. We probably should have a vote on it. All in favor? Raise your hand. Okay, and myself. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the people present. All right. I kind of chaired it last time. We had a pretty easygoing committee, welcomed discussion. It really was. I mean, we agreed to disagree, and that's part of what we want. We don't need a yes process because it's not what the town wants. And so if we can work through the disagreements at this level, there's a better chance of making it through the public as a whole. So,
And we're all adults, so nobody has to get their panties in a bunch.
well, people don't.
Times in good is unfortunate.
Yes, that's some of the, okay, we get the assignment chair. I will put out an agenda each time, once we figure out when we're going to meet, things like that. I'll send it out to the emails. I didn't want to put everyone's phone numbers on this, but if people want their phone numbers on it, I can add them in, and then I can send this out again by email, but it wasn't my place to just arbitrarily throw phone numbers in there. The emails that we're given is what I did. If people want their phone numbers, I'll add them to this roster, and then I'll send that out to everyone, respect for some privacy of their lives and separation. Okay, the charge was the next thing I had, which we kind of talked about. Ideally, the commissioner is looking for, and we've been through this process in town before. You guys have been, everyone that has been around to see it. We've seen the Tilton School property didn't pass. We saw the Manville Road property didn't pass. Both of it, I think, was a high volume, high funding requirement, the cost. That's one of the biggest things taxpayers, I think, are focused on. I know Manville Road, some of the other concerns they talked about was that high curve coming down into it. The property was given to us, but there was a lot of infrastructure that had to get past the railroad and down to it, so that was supplemental costs. The Tilton Road was good. They had but it was just too expensive, I believe. People refer to it as the Taj Mahal. I don't know. You were on some of these past committees, I believe, or one of them. You weren't on either one of them? Oh, okay. I thought someone told me you were, so it's like, oh, great.
I got roped into this, and I'm like, okay. Yes. And I know we need a fire station, but I'm all about it. And I've been to plenty of them, but we need to get a happy medium, so.
Exactly. Somewhere.
Right. We need a needs station, not a wants.
And I think that's part of where I started getting involved in fire services when the Tilton stage, Tilton property one is when I started really paying attention to what was going on, because there was a lot of extras. And that's something, I mean, here we already have utilities to the station. Of course, that's going to be upgraded probably a little bit for systems and things like that. We already have water to the system. We already have the property, so the property is not costing us. And we now own all the way to the on-ramp. So the greatest expansion, the committee that worked on that one figured you could add on up to 14 or add on 14.
Well, one of my favorite subjects.
Yes, I know.
Prior to acquiring the additional land over on that side of the
Yeah.
station, we could build a 14,000 square foot single-story building on this property. And that includes this 4,800 square feet
Into
that
it.
exists. The former architect told us that all we could put up was 10,000. And then we shamed him when we putting up those two little pictures that total up to 14,000 square feet that fit on the property.
At the time to do that, we would have been right up to the property line, so the snow abatement, things like that wouldn't have factor. That's no longer a factor because we now have the property out that way, so that definitely plays into it. One of the things that was big time talked about in the last one is staying one story. Because if you go two-story, you're now throwing like 80 or 120,000 alone just for an elevator or 2 stairs to make it the ADA capability upstairs. And that's just wasted money now that we have a footprint wide enough to keep the ADA, keep everything on the ground level. So it's where we can save money. Another part of it was trying to figure out, do you demo and gut, or do you flatten, or there was major discussions. That's what we're going to look at is how much of this can we use, because that's where you can save some costs. And if you only have to upgrade this a little bit and you build onto it, but what needs to be done? Do you?
Yeah, the difference between building a 14,000 infrastructure, 10,000 infrastructure,
So that's some of the stuff we're looking at. I mean, ideally when we're done, Center Street will not be needed. That is one of the biggest things with this, is getting this done and getting Center Street off the property. It can go back to the town of Tilton as a historical building if they want, but what's housed there currently is an engine, an ambulance, and a utility could be in the garage area. I think you still have room for that even with the hazmat, the dryer cleaners and stuff like that. So 3 pieces of equipment. Now, we do keep some equipment outside over there. I'd have to go through there. It talks about how much parking space we're looking at, whether it's 13 or 14 vehicles altogether. And then you're talking admin, dorms for the firefighters, community space for the firefighters, administration, records, administration, desks, medical storage, decon. These are some of the big things that when we start breaking into sections of what needs to be there to meet certain standards. The other thing is door entry. I guess the industry standards, and we'll get into that more, the chief has a lot of references and stuff like that. It's 14 by 14 entranceways for the apparatus these days. This is 12 by 12 and the tower fits and the trucks fit, but it just... Right, but that's kind of the standard now. And over at Center Street, I think those are 10 by 10 or, yeah, 10 by 10 doors. So literally the engine is rubbing right up against the antennas and stuff are rubbing up against the door. And that's part of what hurt us with buying apparatus is we had to design to fit down into that. So going forward, if we don't have such a tight opening, then we are engineering down. So that's just, and there's going to be a lot of information we'll come out with the first couple of sessions.
And excuse me if I'm speaking out of turn, but at the end of the day, and it'll be long after our time here, Tilton and Northfield are going to be like Laconia or the Weirs. You're going to have a substation up there. Like I said, it'll be long after our time, but eventually, and if the towns can see that, okay, this is main headquarters, 20, 30 years down the road, okay, yeah, you build a substation up someplace on Route 3 when it's much busier. Like I said, it'll be long after our time.
Yeah, and a lot of that, we talked about that in the last meeting, that plan that we came up with, like outlining this report, we identified as being strictly for the president, and Sean indicated our goal is to get something that the voters will approve. Because it hasn't just been 2 times, it's been more than that brought to the voters, and they said no. Who knows what? Is it cost? You know, a big part of it is the perceived need. That's a big part of it. But you know, part of it too is that they look at, people don't know what is inside this building. They think that it's a fire station, and it's not. It's a garage. And they don't know the condition of Center Street because nobody goes in there. I don't know how you guys work out of that building. I really don't.
If you ask a number of the firefighters, they won't stay at Center Street, so.
They will or will
Want
not.
to?
They want to stay at Center Street.
95% of the calls we do is we handle with an engine and an ambulance. Put another ambulance at Center Street, we can handle 95% of our calls. I don't know. Chief asked me to be on this committee, and I said, I don't think you're going to like my opinion about the fire station. So.
That's good to have. It's good to have an objection to see what's going on.
But to his point, we're 2 years too late to hear that opinion. Because the charge is to build a station.
I've been here 10 years, and I think 7 of them you guys have had building committee meetings, and we haven't accomplished it. Right? You guys waste how much money? How much money do you waste every year getting building plans or hiring architects or lawyers or seeing how much figuring out land and whatnot? It's been more than that, but since I can remember, 7 years now, we've been wasting money on trying to build a station.
Here's a
When you
question
could have
that-
built an addition on the Center Street by now and put an entrance.
We don't own the property. We can't.
We didn't own this property.
We did, but we still had enough
Figure
space.
a way out.
No, I understand, and I appreciate this. I appreciate
Yeah,
back and forth, so I don't want you to think. But we had enough space here that we could have expanded a couple more bays that way, and we would have been up to the property line, and we would have had to deal with abatement with the state for the snow swap. But we had the space to build on before we even acquired that property. So, but
Yeah, I understand that. I just,
Center Street, Town of Tilton, we can't build onto there. And even if we did, I mean, you know the codes and stuff, we'd have to bring that up to code, which
The
means
building
we'd
has
have,
to be torn down.
we'd have to put it at minimum, even to consider getting the code, you'd have to have a sprinkler system. The fire alarm system you've done, you'd have to have an elevator because it's 2-story. You'd have to have 2 separate means of egress that are proper instead of that headbanger stairway you have that's the wrong pitch and rise and things like that. So,
yeah, things
So-
can be, I'm just,
no,
I felt things can be overcome.
it can, but if we are the code enforcers for it, or, I'm sorry, the fire district is, they have to also set the example instead of grandfather. Their grandfather into it, but as soon as they start putting too much work into it, they're gonna have to meet those codes. And as we said, it was, when we talked about second story, it was there a note somewhere. It was like 80 to 120,000 right off the bat, drop the check if you go 2 stories. Because of 2 fire-rated stairways
Right.
and an elevator, and we have to do it for your safety, even though
How much
it's
is an addition on this going to cost you?
probably more than that.
5 million?
No,
No way.
no. That's the biggest thing that
If you
killed
go to
it.
the public with $5 million, you
It's
get
done.
nothing.
They're going to say no. And I have a question about Center Street. So, and maybe it's some of it that's just nostalgia, but getting out of that building. So if you're upstairs,
Yeah.
you get downstairs to the trucks, to the apparatus, get the doors open, and then drive down that narrow little street and make the turn onto Main Street, whether you're going left or right, and there's cars parked on both sides.
We do it every day. It's not like,
But you come
it's
out.
like walking out of your bedroom every morning, I guess. It's
Right,
not like.
but when
it's
you
not
come
that hard.
here,
Yeah.
and you open a door, and you're at the apparatus, and you're out onto
I mean,
Park Street.
that station is the only station I've ever done, so I don't.
I think you need to look broad on the horizon, look at the opportunities, and go, oh my God, I can turn out onto a road and not have to like possibly make a 3-point turn because there's cars parked on both sides, or hope that there's nobody walking across the street, or that there isn't traffic coming with. You can't put a light up there. You can put a light up there.
Yeah, it does. That's one thing.
There's pros and cons to both, and
Yeah.
so it's good to bring out those concerns. I mean, because part of this is getting also buy-in from the firefighters. I mean, maybe at the end of this, we can sell you that, okay, there is pros to that. If we can sell you as a naysayer, we have a better chance of selling to the rest of the staff. And with that, by some naysayers on this committee, if we can, I don't like that because I'm a nitpicky, I'm not going to spend a dime. I can see that worth the investment, and we can sell that. That can be sold to the public too. So you're actually perfect to have on here, because if we can convince you, we've got the fire department support. So there is pros and cons to how things are done. Right? Throw out what you see as, no, that won't work. Well, why won't it work? And that's the whole thing, is when we have these, what worked last time is, if you have an argument or you have a concern, why? And like with the military, we talk about, well, what are possible solutions at the same thing? I don't like it. I don't like it because of this. Well, what if we were to do this? So if we're going to come out with them, let's also try and look at alternative to what it is. Nostalgia they talked about. They like what they are. The cost, the overall cost of this. We go with the $5 million, we've wasted our time here.
Yeah, and I look at it as I guess I look at it as I don't really, I'd rather keep the grant guys than go for a station. And that's every
It's
firefighter.
not an either or.
Every firefighter at that station would be,
I understand.
and we don't want that to go away from.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to mask and cloud the other option.
Yeah.
It's not an either or, especially given that the grant is going to be, runs out a year beyond when this is going to come to the public.
Yeah, it's just, we just don't, I mean, I wouldn't want, you're saying that like, we're going to come to this next year, 2022, we're going to go for a station, and then a year after that is when you guys are going to be voting on the grant guys.
The grant started last year, so 2022 would be the end of year one, right?
Yeah.
So
you get 2 more years.
2024.
I just see it as a,
No, that's
being
a
like, well, we just gave these guys a fire station, why do they need to keep?
that's a definite concern. Is
You will hear that.
Yeah, I know I'll get
It's
that.
one argument.
I would much
Absolutely.
rather keep the 4 guys shipped than
Yeah.
come get this Taj Mahal fire station.
yeah. Well, it's not going to be a Taj Mahal.
Get just clarification, are you saying that you wouldn't want to, or the guys that work at the station there wouldn't want to continue working as out here?
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, in my opinion,
Okay, I'm just trying to understand.
I'd rather
Have the 4 guys.
have the 4 guys to get to the
shift.
fire station.
I see, you're trying to increase
For
personnel.
clarification, that
Okay.
4th guy right now is subsidized by a grant.
Right.
I see. I
And
see.
so when the
Oh,
grant
I see.
expires, that's going to be an
I
added
see,
cost.
so you'd rather keep that guy than at the station?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
It's
I
not
think,
one guy, it's 4 guys.
Well,
Keep
one
those
per
four.
shift.
Yeah.
One per shift, okay,
Right.
thank you. Sorry.
And the whole idea is right now they're temporary and to the
Yes,
end of the
to the
grant was around.
Yes, the safer grant.
Now, the commissioners have another safer grant committee working on trying to figure out funding potentials, see what can happen at the end of that 3 years, and to see if they can sell it to the public that they want to stay with it. Because it will go to the public again to see if there's just one more market that we have to sell.
Well, it would be part of the budget.
No, not necessarily. The way it was written is it would have to be a warrant article to take them on.
Wait, what was it?
When we took them on, we agreed that at the end of that, they all signed their contracts, unfortunately, that at the end of that grant, if there is not funding, then it is it was a 3-year job.
But all.
It won't be in the budget.
Of course it will. The commissioners are going to come up, or the budget committee is going to come up with a budget that may or may not include those 4 additional firefighters. It's not going to be a warrant article.
Could be.
It could be.
It's up to them, it's up to the commissioners.
Sure.
It could be.
It should be.
Just like the.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. To sell it to the public properly, it should be as a warrant article explaining the funding, the pros and cons, just like the funding pros and cons of this, rather than masking it in the budget.
Back to Matt's.
The other one that went that way.
Back to Matt's original comment. This committee recognized that this is a present day solution that hopefully we can get the voters in the 2 towns to approve, knowing that based upon the number of calls and the type of calls, and the majority, the vast majority of calls are EMS calls, that there is the need for a substation somewhere east of 93 that would be, in my mind, an ambulance, or maybe two ambulances.
An ambulance and an engine.
Ambulance and an engine. Like I said, it's gonna be like Laconia and the Weirs eventually. But like I said, it's not gonna be in our time, it isn't. But, I mean, and I understand Derek's point as well. Because those 4 guys have done numbers already. But, in the meantime, you look at like Laconia Station. I mean, I was just up in Augusta, Maine. There was probably a $15 million fire station that they built, and absolutely beautiful. And they're doing 3 times as many calls as us. But for a department our size, these 4 guys are running their butts off. And eventually, like I said, towards, you know, Dodge Hill or whatever, Rusty's, whatever. I mean, I always said where Winnisquam Auto was, Truck Trends would have been a perfect substation, but we lost
Personally, I
that.
think right at the intersection of 132 and Route 3 where that gas station has been empty forever.
As a substation, or one of the things we talked about, it got shut down real fast, and I got spoken to by the selectmen, was build a small substation onto the side of the existing police station as a public service building. We'd have to lease the land utility. And boy, the selectmen were very aggressive and called me, and the chief said, "Don't you dare come to our meeting." Because that would have been a perfect opportunity, because if you had any shared resources, you could do it. I mean, granted, it's a district versus a municipal agent, but, so we've looked at options like that, just like the old state building that was right behind Walgreens, where they used to house the New Hampshire hazmat truck. That would be another potential. I mean, there's things to look at, and no offense, but it really helps an insurance program. What is it? It's not River Mania, that's up in Plymouth. J. Jill. Maybe even down the road, 10 years from now, we look at them, hey, will you sublease some of that property, and then you got a fire station sitting right on your property. Your insurance rating is going to go down immediately because you're going to have water source there, and you're going to have immediate response from a fire department. So, I mean, there is potential down the road of marketing and things you have to do. I mean, what would be nice is put an exit 19 north right here. Because then you bypass all the traffic and you would be right at exit 20, just like that. The state, it's not even on the docket for the state to look at in 10 years, but who knows, maybe once you have a station here, you go back to the state and it's like, we want to get back on the docket for recognition. And by the way, it's emergency access for that might change. All these things are absolutely long-term looking at better coverage over there. I mean, because the con to having 2 stations is now you have to split your manpower because you can't just run one person there. You need 2 people at each. And that's the downside because now you're running 2 on a fire engine, 2 on an ambulance, instead of a crew of 3 on an ambulance or 3 on it. So there's pros and cons to the whole operation and footprint and things like that. Just many pieces that we're going to discuss in detail here. And like I said, I welcome your negativity because if I can sell you, I can sell you.
But again, we need to go back to what our charge is.
Yes.
Plans for, shovel-ready plans for a station, a headquarters station on this site.
Yes. That is the now. Yes.
So at the end of the day, they're looking for us to take 14,000 square feet
Or more.
and
Or 10, or 12, or...
put the
3.
divided rooms and however many they need for what we need. That's what
That's what I was looking for right here. So that will include forms, a form space, whether they're divided room, one per shift, so 4 of them, so that if you do go co-ed, you also have that. Enough showers, decon showers, accessibility, because part of what we talked about is the pre-tone alert and the tone alert. By the time you guys get the tone upstairs, you put down the oven or whatever you need to, you go down that stairs, hopefully not bang your head, and I know a couple of times you guys have set your heads off of that open ceiling. Get downstairs, gear up, get on the trucks, get them out, and get on the road. That's what he's talking about. You're talking 3 to 4 minutes right there. If you had a data room right over there on the same ground level as your ambulance or your engine, are literally going to be trucked to the road in about 2 minutes. So that alone is now helping a little bit with that response time, because now you're talking response time from there. From here, yes, you're adding probably another 2 minutes. Response time here as you work from Center Street. But you've now taken that from the other end of it as that pre-road time. So these are factors that we'll look into and try to consider as well. But that's the idea of having everything downstairs, having a door nearby, and a neighbor nearby where it's be like double. So you literally walk out and go rather than that whole upstairs nightmare. Making sure, and one of the things we talk about is we got to look at COVID down the road. So 4 individual rooms with a bunk and a small wall locker needs as an option, and then for your 4 people for the shift, you would have one person each would have a room, and then you would swap out your linens for the shift, just like you guys do now, but potentially it's an option. But we got to look at the code for that. We also got to look at all the codes and stuff, because we got to build it for code, so sprinklers. The heat source here, we have to, that would be an impact on here as well as utilities, things like that. Also, we had talked about possible extra room for like students. Where we put 2 bunks in that room for students, or if you had to have 12 people stay overnight because we have an extreme winter storm or something, you had to go a little bit more people, then you could put a couple more people could be here if you had that more immediate response for down power lines. But having 2 students, then that helps with the manpower piece of it, because then you become an overnight student opportunity, and now you have 2 additional sets of muscles on the scene. I mean, they're not going to be your thinkers, but they're going to be your doers. Okay, go do that. Go drag that. And they get that experience. So that's some of the things that we talked about last time. And those have to be exterior rooms because you have to have the egress out of them. So you have to have a window in case something goes wrong in the hall. So there's some impacts of that. But, I mean, the Taj Mahal, they had a second balcony on the other side with a hose tower so they could use it for ladder training. There was no reason for that second stairway and balcony on that other side of the storage other than, well, now we can do the ladder train for it. That is more of a want. Yes, you guys need to have ladder training options in town. But if you start adding that extra tower into it, that's going to increase the dollar amount, and that's just going to make it harder to sell. Whereas currently you use Tilton School for your ladder training. You have your training facility down there, so this would impact the training facility. When we looked at all this stuff, you could still have the training facility there, the tower there. We were very cognizant of that whole thing when we were conceiving all of the potentials. So, I think I'm off track, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, drag me back, you know that. I forgot where we were even getting with that.
Meeting frequency.
Thank you. Okay. No, I appreciate it. I am passionate about this because I want to see something happen in our lifetime. And I think this has the best potential if we don't go for the Tilton School. I mean, drive-in bays are nice. How often are you actually going to drive in to avoid the backup argument that was brought up? Probably the wrong argument for it. You're going to drive in from the second bay and pull up to the front bay. You're not going to. You're going to have tail to tail, or you're going to have one behind concept. But the argument, well, that way we won't have to back up and reduce damage. Wrong argument to battle that one.
Can't back the truck if you shouldn't be in the city.
Well, either ground guides or cameras, or there's systems you got to do.
You know, I asked my brother-in-law, who's the district chief in Boston, I said, drive through base? He goes, no, I want it. Like, man, how do you do it? We back up.
Well, you look at Concord, it's a drive-through on the Heights, and they have a boat behind and a spare engine or a spare utility behind. It's just nature of the beast. Every square foot of parking space is needed.
Never seen it anywhere.
Yeah, frequency. Last time we were getting really tight near the end. We were meeting like twice a month, I think. We even got to the point where we were like weekly. I think weekly is going to burn us all out before we even get started. What are people thinking? Flexibility in schedules and things like that.
Well, if we're going to have planes ready for March,
Or if you want to walk in medical emergency.
They actually gonna have to be February.
We just take September.
Right.
You're not gonna have shovel-ready plans for voting in March.
Okay.
Is that- Unless,
I was gonna say, you guys already have, you guys don't have any
We have-
plans or anything like that?
the only way that would happen is if we had a building that we could make use of, and we could get those plans. But I don't know where that would come
So you guys haven't had anything drawn up or anything?
from. Oh,
Yeah.
There's no,
We
The
first,
first,
we must have copies of the plans from
Chief Gary Days.
our wonderful architect or engineer, whatever the hell,
He has, Kyle, yeah, he has some,
which belong to us.
he has some rough conceptuals to make it fit. So the chief had a lot of information, and I've collected a lot of the information. What I'm gonna do is get down to a Google Drive, so that, well, yeah, I know.
remember last night?
Yes, I know. We're gonna,
We have the plans for Manville Road.
right,
We have the plans for the Tilton School site.
correct. We have both of those. We have some of the workup documents from it and regulation. I'm gonna, over the next week, try and get all that to a shared drive system. The district uses Google Drive. I'm not sure if the Microsoft Office allows us to have like a library. The problem is that we would have to assign a department email for anyone to access that.
We were able to access it before.
If we did the Microsoft Office through that we could. We did Google Drive we did before.
Right.
There was issues with that.
Well, you had it.
We'll make sure we print off paper for you on everything.
You still do like Morse code when you text, right?
So that's one of the things I'm working on over the next week is all that data getting into a digital platform that everyone can pull from it themselves. And we'll have to get from Kyle Barker his conceptual so far. So, yeah.
And to Derek's point too, this question I wanted to ask for a while and I kept forgetting to is, how much money have we given to Mr. Barker? You as a commissioner can find that out.
Yes, I can't give you an answer tonight.
No, I didn't.
I couldn't give you a dollar, but, so for money, currently there are $100,000 was put into a non-lapsing fund last year for the design, the intent to design and plans and everything needed to get this done. How much we did with Kyle Barker, I don't know if that was even after last year. It was before, so we may still have the full pot. I will get a clearer number.
We still got the whole 100,000. We didn't spend anything.
Right.
I mean, in what the past 4 or 5 years, how much have we spent?
I can ask.
These Derek's right. We spent a lot of money.
Yep.
And gotten nothing out of it.
Yep. Now, one of the things that we want to look at is what guidance he was given in the past to build. Because everyone has their own opinions on what it needs to be in the station. I have my own opinion, you would have yours, you would just have a garage and you'd have a couple of cots over there and a shower if they had their way. So everyone would have their own thing, and we know that some of these...
I'm with him, but I give him a hot plate.
Okay, so you can give them a heating source as well. The grill, so they can have it
Oh, I
outside.
gotta bring that.
And we know that some of the others were definitely built to the higher end spectrum. It's like, we need this, and so we need to see what guidance Kyle was given by whatever committees were in the past. Because maybe he was told, hey, I need you to build this, and maybe I'll be able to shrink it down after I get the town to pay for it. We don't know what his guidance was, so we need to sit down and be our own voice piece.
We don't need to. What his guidance was.
If we get that, that gives us a guidance to work from, and then we can actually look at that. It's like, okay, that was a want, that was a need, that was a want. It might actually move us forward.
It's very easy to identify the wants. We already did that when we all voted no on the Manville Road Station, one of which was the training room that seats 50 people. Sorry, no. You got the Pines, and by the way, the new police station is a great training room.
Right.
So you need a day room.
You need a conference room that you could use indoor training with or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. why have space that's not occupied, so multi-purpose? So you have a day room separate for the firefighters, away from the public, and then a smaller conference room that they can use for training, or the public could use, or to review plans with the building inspector, little things like that. They can.
Why?
You'll have agencies like Boy Scouts or will come in, Girl Scouts will come in. You want that?
We used to
Go
go
for
to
Belmont does it all the time.
Yeah.
What do they do?
The Boy Scouts come in, they have their meetings there at times, they'll do first aid
We
meeting,
got the Pines.
they'll do first aid training for people, they also have EMT classes.
The police station.
Yeah.
We have the Pines. We don't need another room when we have all these other rooms in the community.
Right, but the firefighters also have a training room, so are you going to have the firefighters, when they're going to discuss entry, they're going to go over to Pine Street first and do the
Day
training?
room a little bit larger. So
That's
that-
what I just said.
No, you said a separate conference.
No, I didn't.
You did.
No, I don't want a separate, I want them together.
I don't want to say.
I want them as one, because when it's not being used for one, it's being used, it could be used for something else. That way you're doing dual purpose from the same size.
They just close it all in.
If we're gonna get anywhere near making this happen, one of the things that we need to decide on, in my opinion, immediately is, how are we gonna build this? We're gonna do design build, which is the least expensive and the most interactive way to do it, or we're gonna hire an architect like we've done however many other times before, have them sit in all these meetings and come up with plans and a price, and then go out for bid. A lot more expensive, a lot more time.
I'm not opposed to that design build, if that's what, that's one of the discussions we'll have as a team, is we'll go over what are our options and how we do it, absolutely. No, and
But
that's,
as a design build, don't you eventually have to hire an architect?
but he builds it to
What we want.
Yeah.
We'll give them our specs and.
make it happen, make it
Work
happen.
with the contractor. I mean, not every contractor is a design build contractor.
Right.
They'll bring in subs that are design build subs. So you'll have an architect's drawing,
Mhm.
but the contractor and the subs are gonna basically build it as they go.
Instead of an electrical engineer sitting as part of the office is going to design the electrical, he'll,
Oh, yeah.
the Daniels Electric coming in will, okay, their estimator will, okay, I need to get basic power sources of this, I mean, it saves some significant cost when you do it that way, rather than going like DP and DPS, where they have, okay, so I'm going to civil engineer, he's the electrical engineer, oh, she's the plumbing engineer, oh, so you're going to pay me for this, oh, you're also paying me, so. So that's what we're kind of looking at, other options where cutting down that $5 million.
Sanderson did design build
For the police station.
For the police station
Yes.
and town hall too. Was it?
There, it's a community building, police and town hall, I believe.
I think the town hall is going to move, they're going to build a new town hall near their library, actually, and that, so the police will take over the current town
That's like
hall.
a point up.
Yeah.
I like the same room.
So design build versus architect and contract, what would the other GC? General contract, thank you. Yeah. That helps. That'd be another thing.
We could have Kevin do that.
Yeah.
I mean, shit.
I was gonna say, is your roof even
You see
sheathed
how
yet?
long I said on the house?
He's living in a house with no windows.
You need
No
somebody
roof.
to sheathe that roof for you?
It's all done.
Is it?
The back's all done. That's why I can't
You
walk.
want to sell it now?
If someone thinks it's worth, you know what my fear is, honestly? Someone's gonna think it's worth more than I do, and they're gonna. That's just,
You pave that driveway, I'll buy it now, just the way it is.
Hey, let's back on this.
so meeting frequency
Meeting frequencies and
First.
meetings, yes.
is Wednesday good, it appears to be.
It is, except I know Joyce can't meet Wednesdays.
Yeah, Wednesdays are difficult for me,
Okay.
any other night, Wednesdays are hard.
I just brought some generic calendars I got from the station.
Tuesdays are out for you and for you, right?
One Tuesday a week minimum is for me, and then you have.
One Tuesday a week.
Okay. Yes, one Tuesday a week within the month.
But the other Tuesday, which is right before Thursday.
Yes.
Is that only in leap year or something?
All right. I know I do school board on Monday night. That's where we're trying to get. Joyce, I know, had problems with Wednesdays. Are Thursdays a possibility for people? Yes,
Don't
yes.
mind a 2-year-old here.
No, not at all. Nope. Then see what he or
Think
she
of the fun
can
they
do.
would have.
Yeah. no.
Thursday is going to be a problem come budget.
Everything's going to be a problem for those budget season months because we're all getting. You have Fridays and then you have your selectmen budget or your
23 engine, 1
town budget. Yeah, because I have school and fire. It's just gonna, no matter what, it's gonna be kind of crazy.
So
Your speed, smoke from cooking,
I don't want to end up excluding anyone, but this is a Wednesday.
And we have
Yeah,
two-thirds.
Right, but the other two-thirds of the two-thirds of the people who aren't here, it's a unique issue, right?
I actually did not hear back from
Todd and then the chief
Todd.
aren't here.
Chief is, yep, but also
Chief golf's on Wednesday.
he's almost done that. So he's not part of my factor for Wednesday.
Can it be earlier on the Wednesday?
That'd be great.
4:30, say?
I know you're coming from Wednesday.
And you're working, man, you got a big business to run.
Once winter gets here, 4:30 won't work for me.
Okay.
So,
Oh, no, you will.
yeah,
I don't know.
I'll be busy.
Well, you just have to watch the video. Put your 2 cents in after.
Well, so there are options that are allowed.
Well, let's go back to Wednesday, earlier Wednesday, 4:30's out, but rather than 6. What time can you do?
5:30 would be
Ideal.
Ideal or the best? Or the most convenient?
most convenient.
What about you two?
4:35 also works, so 5 o'clock works for me.
Yeah, early the better.
It's an issue for you.
Right.
Just once it starts to get cold, it'll be an issue for me.
Why would you move solar when it gets colder?
You all want propane and oil, that's the
But his
problem.
birthday gets a little longer.
Well, I didn't know what it is.
We still do
Yeah,
that.
we still. So, and we can, if we need to adjust it as we get into this because of the seasonal change and the schedules, we can look at possibly adapting. But for right now, what if we looked at Wednesday nights, 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
And now for frequency, at least twice, or like every other week for now.
First to the third Wednesday.
Is that it?
I'm busy on the first one.
Okay.
But the rest
Second and fourth. Or even second and third. We can be back to back. It doesn't matter to me.
So what's,
You think the second and third, you're gonna not forget what you just talked about 2 weeks ago. So
Also,
if you talk this week and next week,
Does that give us enough time if we have to go?
the in-between is, that's what I'm nervous about, is the 1 week apart is if you're looking for the information or you're trying to get a proposal or something back from the architect or engineer. If we're requesting any kind of information, I think 1 week turnaround is going to be hard to get that back.
and
So that's why I think that as an option, the second and fourth gives you like a 2 week window. It's a little bit better opportunity to get back from contractors and things like that, or for whatever process, or need to go and contact the commissioners, and if we have to have the commissioners meet for a guidance or something, I have to have
You guys meet on the first Tuesday, is that right?
second,
23 engine, 1.
it's usually second, but it's fluctuating back and forth, so we'll adapt, and it's Tuesdays at least.
Yeah, you just have to take notes.
I have more meetings the first Tuesday of the month.
Okay, so second works, second and fourth
Yeah.
currently work for you. You think second and
Yeah.
fourth Wednesday? Okay. Looks like that's probably where we go with it. So the frequency, and I will get the calendar, and I'll send that stuff out to your emails. The emails that I had on that, if you want a different email for some reason, just let me know and I'll adjust that earlier rather than later so that Kevin doesn't keep sending you stuff to that old one that you didn't want.
And then go, I can just answer my emails?
Because that was that.
I mean, there's got to be like a list of prior meetings of like what
There is our
discussed
contact.
what they wanted and whatnot that we can already go through and be like, yeah, we need that, no, we don't need that, yeah.
That's some of the
Well,
historical
absolutely,
stuff I'm
yeah.
pulling
Especially
over
the
and
drive.
dropping into a
There's
drive.
a floor, at least two sets of floor plans running around somewhere.
Yeah.
Chief Carrier, back when this,
Sends him.
Yeah.
he was working on
Adding
the
on,
expansion of that over there.
just a good idea.
So a reading time on the second and fourth Wednesday is what?
Is 5, and I'm going to try to keep us to 2-hour sessions if we can. Just valuing time. If we're really into something and we have to go a little bit over, but if we try and target towards that, it helps to kind of plan that whole thing. Because after a while, I mean, the mind can only absorb what the butt can endure. So if you stay here arguing for too long, you just can't absorb anymore. And
In the blue circle.
yes. And if I start talking in circles, put me back on track, please.
Does anyone know if there is an easily accessible source of current building codes?
There, so I will talk with the chief because the department has the 101 and all the variants, including the station there's a station code and all that, but it's something that they pay for as a license. So I have to find out accessibility, how much, we may not be able to duplicate it. And I believe it's a digital library you guys are using for that nowadays.
There's no more book.
Yeah, you went all digital. So I'll do some research on that for the most recent codes or list thereof of the codes for what you're trying to get to.
And any exemptions, because we know there are a lot for municipal buildings.
Anyway.
Exemptions.
Oh,
For example, the whole thing with building to the property line. And my favorite architect said, "Oh no, you can't do that." And I said, "Well, yes, you can." And he came back and said, "Oh yeah." And he said, "Oh no, you're right." And oh yeah, you can build a retaining wall as part of the foundation. Oh no, you can't. Yes, you can.
So I'm kind of taking notes of stuff that we're going to need to wrap our hands on so that I'll have some information and I'll send out emails as soon as I know what they can. Because the chief had talked in the past about station codes, like you got your 101 series, which is your life safety, and we got to meet that as a public building. We still have to have,
Right, but not NFPA stuff. We want state.
those are built
federal
upon,
statutes.
the state adopts
NFPA.
NFPA.
Yeah, so that's.
So your electricals,
State or federal statutes, not what the NFPA says that would be nice to have.
in order to meet the state standards, NFPA 70 is your national electrical code. You have to meet that because the state has adopted 3 years behind or 6 years behind. But that is what the state adopted.
But the chief also likes to say, well, you know, the standard for the doors is 16 feet, so that when you have the compartments open, there's 12 feet between the trucks. And
That's,
Yeah,
that's a one, correct. And so when
we
we,
want to know, what do we have to do,
right,
not what do we want to do.
correct. And if that's the case, then the question comes up, to what regulation does that, and that's the question we ask. Okay, so if something comes up of, okay, well, you need to have this, based on what code? Because then we pull out the Googles and stuff, and we pull up that regulation, and we read the black and white for the shall versus should.
And,
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we find this stuff, and that's part of that accessibility to systems. Yeah, because you have your BOCA code, you have your 101s, absolutely. You have your plumbing code, and that's not a fire.
and if we decide to go with the sign code, then whatever contractor we decide to go with will have all that information.
Right.
We can ask those questions, and it doesn't cost us anything, like it did
It's part of
every time somebody emailed Parker, we got a bill. We can call up the contractor and say, hey, we get, you know, these 20 questions from our last meeting,
Yep.
and they'll give us answers.
Exactly.
And it's all part of the
Yeah.
fee.
No. And that's where we talk with 5 million. If we can save that kind of money by doing this stuff, I mean, it's just a more fiscal approach to it. Then hopefully we'll sell you guys.
Sell me.
Hey,
Just kidding.
I'm gonna try.
Once the building's built, and the first time Derek has.
I got my own room here, I don't have to listen to that guy
He's
down the
gonna
hall.
go,
I don't care
he's
about
gonna
shit.
call, and he's gonna go,
They were right.
This
I'm never
is-
gonna admit it, but they were right.
Walk over some doors like Franklin.
Yeah.
Fill them up, push them open, and just go out in the.
Yeah, like Laconia's. Alright. So we have our frequency, second and fourth Wednesday, 5 to 9, 5 to 7. Alright. Okay. Some basic ground rules we talked about earlier. It's like a civil discussions, no fist fights or anything like that. If you have arguments, okay, acknowledge each other's arguments. Everyone has strong feelings one way or another. Just because you feel strongly that this pencil is yellow, someone may say no, it's not, and they may have a reason for that. So let's understand each other and try to figure out why there's a disconnect. You're colorblind, so you can't see that it's yellow. Okay, now I understand that. You already have filters on, we know of negative filters, but we know that, and so we're going to work with that. And like I said, I can work with that. That gives me a challenge to it. Well, I can sell you. We got this sold to the department. So definitely positive when we can, and we're going to agree to disagree at times. I ramble, so I need people to keep me back on track. We will have access to the tiny TV up there.
Does it work?
They're going to set me up with a cord, and I'm going to get HDMI. We'll try to do that. We're working on that. If not, then we'll get like the projector here, and we'll aim it up at the wall. So sometimes when we're doing the working group stuff, we can put it up there.
That was handy as hell in that other committee.
Right. Rather than me just reading what I'm typing, you can see it up there as I'm typing. So that was a big thing that helped with so we're all seeing the same thing. So that's some of the things. We are required to record it, although we didn't do an audio record, did we?
Does it record?
It does, but they did audio on top of video is what they, so that's.
That's what the
I
thought it just did both.
Yeah. So, we're required to do that based on an old,
the video has audio, right?
it does,
Yeah,
but
that would be that.
the other one is the backup. So. I don't even like the fact that they do it, but I'm trapped into it because of policy apparently. So.
We did that. We went from that direction.
As far as accessibility, I'm going to do some research. We might be able to set it up where people can call in. The RSA, the way it's written, the majority of the body has to be present. So that's where the Zoom and stuff was under the emergency action, where everyone could be remote. But if for some reason I just have to research 918 again, I believe that we have a means of calling in, and you can make it, or Joyce couldn't make it, she could call in, but we would have to have majority, so more than half of the voting body present, and then we could have one or two people call in. So that is an option as we move forward.
Forward
to
on
do
that
that.
subject, attendance. I would love to see an attendance policy that says you missed 3, you're done. Because this is too important for it to end up being like it was the end of this committee with 3 of us showing up. And if you can't make the commitment to be here, then you obviously don't value the input that you could possibly have, either your own or from other people that know that you're on the committee.
What's other people's thoughts on that?
I don't know that you can enforce it.
Why not?
Well, we can put it as our, if we say that as a committee we agree that that's our rules, then we take it to the commissioners and we ask the person to remove because of, we could go back to.
That you can do.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we agree to it as a group here, saying that, and then they're just not able to conform to that for whatever reason, then we would take it back to the commissioners and ask to have Joe Smith removed from the committee because of the ground rules we set that.
We get somebody who's on this committee that's not here tonight, that was on the last committee and didn't show up after the first couple of meetings.
Yeah. Yep.
And that seat needs to be filled.
Yes. Yeah. But I'm running it by who's here, what people think. I'm not opposed to it personally, but it's a committee, so it's not a dictatorship. And it sounded like he said yes, but we'll make sure. What's your thought on that? Okay, you think that's fair?
Yeah.
You'd be
So I
able to.
should miss the.
Oh, that's why he's already left. He's left for the day. Then just step back and this up. He went up.
No, I mean, obviously, like Kevin said, if the people aren't here putting in their time, where are we gonna give them? So, what did they give us? Nothing.
So you're in favor of that, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're in favor of it?
Yeah.
All right, then, we didn't, you want to make a motion, by the way?
With that process,
Yes.
you know, that'd be that process, because we, as a committee, can neither appoint or remove
Right.
people from this committee.
So the
That's not
commissioners,
within our
so I would then take that back to the commissioners
I'll
and
make a
just,
motion then, since we're following Robert's rules of order.
thank you, that's where I was going next.
I'll make a motion that if a committee member misses 3 meetings, that their position on the committee be brought to the commissioners for possible termination.
I'll second.
And reappointment or appointment of a new committee.
To commissioners for consideration of removal,
Yes.
because we don't want to say they will be, I mean,
You can't,
Right.
it's telling them what.
right, exactly, for consideration of removal. Okay, and then what they choose to do with it after, if they choose to remove, is up to them, whether they shrink it down. We thought you jumped out the window trying to rack up 3.
Window there, I was.
You walked away, but, so we have a motion, well, actually, we have a motion on the floor that we're going to have, if you miss 3 meetings, the position will be brought to the commissioners for consideration of removal, seconded by, KC, KW. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 7, 0. Okay. Just trying to do the notes as best I can with everything else going on. All right. And like I said, just positive communication. We'll work as a team. The last committee we had naysayers. We had people from all sides, and we seemed to really come together and disagree, but okay, walk through why. I mean, I know that some people have the feeling of keeping this as a garage or turn this into the bunk area and build the bigger for the garage. Other people flip-flopped. Some people want a lot more than the needs. And so that's part of where we're going with this whole thing.
Minutes.
Yes.
Who will be transcribing the minutes?
So, thank you. It's going to be hard for me to do minutes and some of the computer work and all that. That's where we got beat up last time. Remember?
Beth did last time.
Caitlin did and Lisa helped her.
I thought,
Beth will type them up after the fact, but someone needs to kind of keep them here. She pulls.
I thought it was based off the recording. That's all.
No, I was sending her written ones too that they were.
I thought it was all, she usually just listens to it and types it out.
So as long as we make sure that we absolutely have the camera and the tape recorder going, then we would like to have someone actually transcribing everything going on too.
If there's anything big, I'll write it down.
What?
If there's anything big, I'll write it down and just send it to her.
Okay, so we'll work on that. It's just sometimes when we get into the computer side of things, it's going to be hard. Remember last time I couldn't quite do both, I was falling behind. So, all right, so minutes will be audio, video. I'll do all this stuff up and send it down for the first one.
You probably know, but I don't know, Julie, if you know, or you guys know, that these are public, the minutes are public, so they'll be posted on the fire department's
It's
website.
supposed to be within 1 week, accessibility within 5 business days following. and-
So if fisticuffs occur, just make sure that you're on the winning side. Because everybody will
Then you-
Again, just make sure you're on the winning side.
Right.
Yeah, I'm usually not. All right, anything else for ground rules that people can think of that we did? Bathroom breaks, take them when you want to. If you want a drink, bring it with you. If you want your coffee, bring it with you.
We're going to continue to meet here.
Yes, that was one of your emails, so I'm glad you did that. So, a concern that was brought up was the mask policies and the changes. Currently, the recommended policy for Tilton Northfield and the buildings is that everyone will do a temperature scan when they come in. which we have the thermal gun over there to just do. Masks are recommended but not required currently. If the policy changes by the commissioners affecting the building, that could affect us too. And I know some people have a problem with the mask, so first off, if that happens, I think the Tilton and the police station conference room will probably be requiring the same thing. They'll probably fall under the same guidelines. It seems to follow the two are based off of DHHS guidance. What does this committee think of mask policy for our, unfortunately, if the commissioners are saying we have to do it here, then we kind of have to follow that. So are we going to stay here or are we going to try going someplace else?
What are other options?
Northfield Town Hall.
No mask required. Can I say the word also?
Okay. It's an open committee, so that's why
Question about meeting location. Northfield Town Hall might be more conducive anyways, rather than sitting around a table like this without technology. And without the,
Yep, and the fans, if we get into the winter months.
Yeah.
It works great for the budget committee, the fire district budget committee.
Now, you're meeting upstairs or the downstairs room?
The budget committee's been meeting upstairs because it's Friday night, but Wednesday nights, I don't think there's anything going on in busy nights in Northfield on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
I'm not opposed to that. I mean, you're still good, if you had to bring your toddler, would still be able to run around and trash that place. They got pink flamingos that flip around and stuff. So do everyone would like to try and do Northfield? I'll reach out, either you or I can reach out to Stephanie and see, is it Stephanie or would it be?
It'd be the town administrator.
Okay, and what's his name, first name?
Ken,
Ken, okay.
then he'll call me and say, is this okay?
I know, but the proper process, that's why I knew it was Stephanie in the past, but so we'll see whether the upstairs or the downstairs, and we'll have to post the minutes anyways 24 hours prior online, as well as the email go out to everyone to let them know. So theoretically, probably, so the next one, right now we're sitting at, October, there's September. This is the 8th, so we actually, so currently the 22nd is currently the next one. And where in the Tilton, where in the Northfield Town Hall will be subjective. I'll work with Ken, whether upstairs or downstairs. All right. So we have a location for the next one and that part.
question regarding social media.
Okay.
One of the key thoughts that came out of that last committee was getting public buy-in, public input as early as possible in the process. Does anybody?
I don't think that would be efficient. Because experience tells me that once you say something in public, you said that.
Where does that come from?
Every time in the last 6 months I've been told, you said this.
I'm just throwing it out there. One way to let the public know that hey, there's a meeting going on tonight. Because this is an open meeting,
Yes.
so the public they can attend.
So we're required to post it at minimum
Right.
by regulation, and it will be posted on the webpage. And I'll probably try and reach out to Ken or Stephanie again and see if we can get on the Northfield notice that goes out, as well as Tilton, I believe, has a notice as well. So we'll see about getting it put on those notices. We have to post it in 2 places minimum.
But nobody goes to the fire department's webpage.
I'm just saying as a start.
It covers it.
Oh, no, I understand, but
Eventually, we're going to have to have public information nights.
well, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So no social media right now, or
I think the first step is let's see how bad we're behind the curve before we throw it out to the media. I'd say give us a couple of meetings to see just how our progression of where we are, and then start talking about, is my suggestion, is the better option. Absorb where we're at. So we'll consider that for going into October or early November possibly. a public information night so that they can see draft process of where we're at,
25
so that
minutes
they're
for
not seeing it in February right before
limited information.
meeting, and then we can do it like in early January as well. Just, hey, this is coming up. This is where, if you have questions, concerns, whatever, come in and beat us up now so we have a chance to address your concerns before March, rather than throw it on the table.
That's much more productive than taking it to a district meeting and getting the snot beat out of you there.
The first time they're seeing
I
it.
forgot there's 4 stairs and stuff.
Right. I've been going through this with the school with all that stuff, and it's like we keep bringing it to the public because people keep bringing stuff up, and maybe an engineer comes in and brings up something we didn't know about. Oh, your snow load changed last year. Thank you. Write that down and let's research that, or things like that. We don't want to.
I can tell you that meeting where you guys came to Northwood Town
Yeah.
Hall with it, that helped you. That was awesome. That was good.
I don't care. That's a different committee. Do whatever you want to that committee.
That was very informational.
How I get beat up on the school, I don't bring to here, and how I get beat up here, I don't take it to school. I'm involved in so much, and I'm hated so much, I don't give a name. I'm doing what I can for the best of who I represent.
45 to 48, Walgreens.
Any other things for how we run the meeting?
Is the meeting going to have a vice chairman?
I think we really should, just in case something does come up and the chair can't be there.
That chair can't miss 3 meetings.
I know. But because as we get into the budget season, there may be where I have
That's what I'm thinking.
to, I know. So I think that the committee should have a chair, just a vice chair, just in case. Toss it out to you guys. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Okay, some people are in favor of. Anyone want to make motions, nominates, or any of that stuff?
Nominate Kevin Waldron.
Yeah, just in case he's.
You brought it up.
He was the vice chair last time. I second that one.
Okay, we got a motion and a second for KW. And that was by Derek and Casey. All right, any other nominations? Not seeing anything, all in favor? Aye. That again is a 7. Any opposed? Abstains. Make sure I do it right. 7-0. All right. All right, so we do have that. Just that way you can still meet, because if the chair doesn't show, you get in a situation where you lost a night, and every night's going to be critical to us. All right, so my rough agenda for tonight, we went over assigning a chair and a vice chair. Any other questions on the review and the charge of where we're at right now? I'm just kind of going over things to make sure people have a rough idea of what kind of mess they stepped in. Okay. Ground rules, we kind of went over that. Any other inputs or questions on ground rules? And schedule meetings, we have a rough one established of that, and we'll get that. I will also send them to Kathy, who will put it on the district calendar that she tracks. So Kathy, I send information to if it's to go out to the public information and things like that. So occasionally she will be CC'd on it. She does not make any decision whatsoever on this. Beth is another one that sometimes you'll see a CC'd on it, because like this is something that came down from the minutes, so they're aware of it, tracking to write minutes. So if you see Beth or Kathy on there, that's why they're not voting or interjecting or things like that. It's just for tracking purposes. Just want to declare everything up front. All right. Pending nothing else, anyone want to make a motion to adjourn? Or is there any other business thing that comes up with people? This is stuff I threw together to get us up and running, and then we'll move forward. Any other concerns?
I have a question. What do we have for action
Pending.
items
Make sure you get
for
a little more
our next meeting?
So currently, before the next meeting, as much digital shareable product. So that way the plans and everything, getting it to a platform so that people can start getting up to speed on them. Currently, last night at the commissioners meeting, the commissioners charged the chief to get us estimates on boring. because unfortunately, when they did the boring for the tower, we were trying to get the boring company to also do test borings for the station. It didn't happen because of whatever reason. It was just be nice while he was on property to save money. So last night, we charged the chief to get us estimates for boring. He's going to get those before our next meeting so that we can get that going. So we can get test borings, because that could impact everything here. Right now, they're saying it's really soft. We may have to clean out and put in better pack, things like that, or retaining. There's all kinds of potentials. It might be great. We don't know.
The borings for the tower came back with unsuitable materials?
It came back that it was soft. So that's where they brought up, they might be concerned of the station. I don't think it's going to impact, but
Geographically, on this lot, the tower is over next to the wetlands, right? And the 14,000 square footprint that we talked about is nowhere near the wetland.
I know. But
I'm just,
yes, but boring is part of the process that we would have to do. So that's why the commissioners got that process started already. As soon as we get the estimates back, we'll get that going, because that's something we would need, or our design build, or our engineer, whoever would need to make sure that the thing's not going to sink into the ground.
can I make a suggestion before we adjourn? Can we take a quick walk outside?
Yes.
So that
Yes,
everybody has an
All firms
understanding
been under control, they would
of
absolutely.
what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. We can take a walk around for everyone needs it. You can stay, or if you want to run away early, you can. I think you've seen the property.
So you have
This is the property
fire service.
prior to the purchase.
I do.
You should have-
Yes.
My fire service is older.
We want,
It's almost older than me.
where we want, but over.
I wonder if it would be prudent to have people,
Someone to kind of
everybody,
explain.
that
If they can say, I just didn't know if you guys were time-wise.
come up with an idea. I think this is what would work.
On their own, their best guess of what they would want would be.
These guys had, everybody, whether they have experience or not.
So,
So on this map, it would be.
Yep.
yeah, basically it would be.
Because then we can throw it all together and see it from the different.
And out the other end will come
So it would
something
be this,
usable, I think.
Some amount.
Out into here, or?
over this way,
Oh,
because we bought over to the on-ramp, which
okay, just here.
Well, you can't have a living space without a window.
And where's the towers?
You need 5 acre.
tower's over here,
Where that wetland is right there, where that
Yeah,
marsh.
right.
is.
That's what we said when we-
where it's just, I think they're gonna be 75 feet.
My argument was then you have a window into the apparatus bay.
So
Because
what
in
we
the
were looking
hallway,
at.
you still have an egress means if you had to open that fixed window. That was
That
my argument right back to him.
was,
You have a second means of egress,
This
it's
is
still the
40
fire bay. If you have a fire in the hallway,
basically
into the
having
bay,
10,000 square foot addition.
you're over. And it will be sprinkler and it'll have fire alarm system.
15 minutes, you want it.
It's redundant safety, I don't
But
get.
now we have all this extra.
You can bail into,
And that's where you could get away with not paying what it was, if it's sprinkler.
Depending on what Tony's fire station, like you go in
But
this,
having this extra space
there's
here
2 beds to each room.
gives us,
You know, what
once
do you
you
need,
got
10 by
to
10?
on the Park Street,
And bedroom, long, big enough
just
to
this.
look. I mean, that's-
I think we were looking like 8 by 6. So literally enough for a bunk and some small walkers.
See, because the less we renovate this.
That's still.
I think 2 beds, 2 beds
If
in
you
each
do
room.
2 beds.
2 beds in each room, and then you have 8 beds,
That
so
have lasted for.
what if, you know, these guys are out on a call and someone comes in the car, they can take over that,
They did.
Other
back
than-
then, They don't now.
go to sleep, because these guys have been
been
at a fire in Canterbury, like, oh, you were in the helicopter.
Another option is bunk beds, which is inconvenient, but how
Well,
often
see,
is that
what we
second
need
bunk
to
really
do
have to
is
use?
into
The
offices.
living space.
But having like the 4 small walkers where you just throw your linen bag into there and they have an extra room, this type of concept. So that's some of the things we're trying to do is,
But we did.
but still give a separation where you can walk away, and you have to look at co-ed options down the road.
Make this all garage.
Yes, as a flight medic, I had females in the up room with me, and people were in t-shirts and underwear and going to games game. But
Apparatus.
so we,
Back 50 years ago, now we're 50 years ahead of time. Times have changed. That's the problem.
Yeah, before it gets dark, we should.
yeah, so
I'm gonna shut this off then.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make a motion that we're going to close the meeting, followed briefly by an outside or a tour of the